It may appear that I'm trashing on TF2 as the majority of my videos are essentially, Valve, you messed up, fix it. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I actually want the game to grow and improve. By pointing out and criticizing its flaws, I want to make Valve see how important they are. And I always try to come up with a possible solution, which likely won't ever really work, but they can at least give an idea of the direction Valve should be going in. However, for this video I wanted to not talk about something that's bad about TF2, but about something that's really freaking good about it. Because despite its flaws, TF2 was and is still made by Valve. And believe it or not, Valve can be really competent sometimes, even if it may not appear that way. The topic of today's video is cooldowns, why they're not such a great thing, and what Valve does to avoid them in TF2. What are cooldowns? Well, when you use an ability as a character, you need to wait a certain time before you can use it again. This is a way of limiting the functions of a certain character, as some abilities are too powerful to be used all of the time. Cooldowns are mostly used in MOBAs, and I don't really know much about MOBAs, but I do know that they have tons of different heroes, like in TF2, with their own abilities. And because MOBAs don't really have medkits or ammo packs, abilities are used to make up for that. Usually with cooldowns, it's an obvious counter that slowly ticks down. Sometimes it's actually different but has the same effect. For example, reloading. Certain weapons in TF2 have to be reloaded and you can't change that. For example, the crossbow or the huntsman, the sniper rifle and the flare guns. It's not really a reload, just an animation that you have to go through, but you still lose ammo. To a certain extent, attacking is also a cooldown as you can't attack literally all of the time. Another example is jumping, because when you jump you have to stay in the air for a certain amount of time before you can hit the ground again. And while in the air you can't jump again, except if you're scout, and have limited movement. But the absolute worst type of cooldown is getting stunned. Movement is such a big part in TF2, but stunning basically disables your movement until some time has passed. I'm really glad that only a small minority of weapons in the game are able to stun players, like Natasha or being air blasted, as you can run away in the air. The worst offender though is the Sandman. It not only slows you down, but it also removes your ability to fight. And it can even prevent you from moving entirely, which is really unfun. Valve, come on. There's also one very big example of a game that uses lots of cooldowns. It's very similar to MOBAs and also TF2 because it has lots of heroes with lots of abilities. And I think you all know the game I'm talking about. Yes, that's right. It's Paladins! Ha! You expected me to mention Overwatch, but I won't do that in this video. Oh wait, I just did. Dang it. Yes, Paladins really loves cooldowns. Because there's no ammo packs on the maps, every character has infinite ammo, you just have to reload. And the abilities of the champions also recharge after a while. And because there's no medkits, you automatically regenerate HP, like in Call of Duty. It also has many characters that are similar to the ones in TF2, but it treats them differently. Drogos is basically the soldier because he has a rocket launcher. But instead of being able to rocket jump, he can fly and also press a button to charge into the air with no damage penalty like in TF2. Now here's the problem with cooldowns. They are boring, and they are also a really lame way of balancing things. I mean, think about it. What do you do when you've used an ability and get a cooldown? You just wait until you can use your ability again. There is no skill involved. The only things that could be considered slightly skillful are avoiding enemies and their attacks while you're waiting for the cooldown to end, and also thinking about when and where to use your abilities. Because wasting it before a big push means that you're useless during it. But there's a huge difference between shooting a rocket at your feet while you're crouch jumping and are in the air and just having to press a button to do so. And things like regenerating HP and having infinite ammo are always less skillful than having to seek out medkits or ammo packs. Now, don't get me wrong, they are a fine mechanic to balance abilities, but they're also a lot more boring. I mean, how are you gonna improve with cooldowns? Oh, next time I'm going to wait twice as hard! The examples I mentioned earlier, reloading and jumping, those are organic ways of using cooldowns, they aren't as artificial. It makes sense why you can't immediately jump again because it's not physically possible. And it also makes sense why you can shoot again because you have to insert a new bullet. But it makes absolutely no sense why you can charge up into the air as Drogos one time, but then can't do it again for 8 more seconds. I mean, what sense does that make in the universe? Maybe your magic has to recharge or something like that, but then show me that. Otherwise the immersion is broken and I feel like the game is cheating me. Now TF2 is not exempt from this, it too uses cooldowns. Weapons that use cooldowns are Bonk, Criticola, the Sandman, the Sandwich, Gerardi, the minigun which has to be spun up, Spy's watches, Demo's shields, the Spycicle and many more. MVM also gives a cooldown to the Zapper so you can spam it all of the time on the robots. Some weapons even use them indirectly. If you backstab a sniper who's wearing the DDS, you can't do it again for a few seconds. And after using the Wrangler, your sentry is disabled for quite some time. But not just weapons, but also central game mechanics employ cooldowns. Respawning is an obvious one, but not just players, even medkits and ammo packs have to respawn after a while. Medic's health regeneration is another one. But in this case, the cooldown is actually an upside because you're the only class that can regenerate HP without using any weapons. But Valve seems to have realized that cooldowns aren't so great, so they tweaked them to require more skill. They did that by making it so you could speed them up. Very recently, the Mad Milk and Gerardi were changed, so extinguishing teammates reduces the cooldown by 20%. That is not only helpful, but you also have to seek out burning teammates. The sandwich is another one, which can be regained by picking up a medkit at full HP. In this case, the skill is not only knowing where the medkits are and picking them up, but also not losing any HP until you can do that. It also applies to ammo packs. Spice watches, for example, can be refilled by picking up ammo, or by using the big earner, but that requires a backstab. And if you use the cloak and dagger, you have to uncloak before you can pick up ammo, making it a risk and reward weapon which fits Spice's playstyle. The Sandman and Rap Assassin can also be recharged by picking up balls. The charge meter of Demo's shields are similar, as they can be refilled with melee kills and sometimes ammo packs. Even buildings have cooldowns, as teleporters teleport slowly, but if you upgrade them, they do it much quicker. Regeneration is also affected. A recent change made it so you regenerate HP faster if you don't take damage for quite some time. This applies to the Medic, the Conjurer and the Cozy Camper. The challenge here is avoiding enemy attacks, and while this is very similar to cooldowns in general, getting hit restarts everything and you have to start all over again. In summary, cooldowns are still in place and balance things out, but if you're good, you can speed them up. Not all cooldowns though. Ammo packs and medkits always take the same time to respawn. But in their case, the real challenge is knowing where they are and seeking them out, which is not always easy, especially if you're on fire, as well as making you decide if you want to leave the battle and get them, or if you want to keep fighting and risk death. In a way, waiting for them to respawn is also a skill, similar to the abilities I mentioned earlier. But in their case, you don't know when they're going to come back, so you either risk waiting or seek out another one. Respawn, however, is kinda lame still. It is balanced and it is fine, but Overwatch does it admittedly better. Yeah, I already mentioned it, so why not talk about it? In Overwatch, respawning is much faster, but you have to walk more to get back into the fight. This is actually a good thing though, because if you're good at movement, you can get back much faster than everyone else. Though I would really like to see a mechanic where if you die, you turn into a ghost and have to manually fly back to spawn, which would take normally the same amount of time as respawning, but if you're closer to spawn or are good at maneuvering, you can respawn much quicker. So pretty much what the Halloween version of Doomsday does. But notice how there are barely any cooldowns for the classes themselves except for regeneration and buildings. That shows that Valve realized pretty early on that cooldowns aren't so fun, and I think they wanted to try out something that served a similar purpose but required much more skill to pull off. So they implemented buildups. A buildup, and I'm not even sure if that's the right term, but it makes sense to me, is the opposite of a cooldown. Instead of being able to use an ability straight away and have a counter tick down before you can use it again, instead the counter starts at 0 already and you have to increase it to earn your ability. Compared to cooldowns, this is a much better system as it not only discourages spam but also rewards skill. TF2 uses 3 different versions of buildups. The first one fills automatically without you having to do much. This doesn't require much skill, you just have to know when and where to start the build up and also when not, because you can't do it all the time. Examples are the sniper rifle, the sticky launcher, the minigun, cow mangler and the loose cannon. Even the beggar's bazooka, because you have to reload it before you can even use it. The second build up requires you to fill it yourself. These are much more rewarding because you have to increase them using your own skills. And the better you do, the faster you can do it. For example, Soldier's Banners, the Flog, Babyface's Blaster and the Soda Popper. Interestingly, the Soda Popper is only here because of a recent change, because Valve made it so your hype meter would only fill through damage and not through running, which requires little to no skill. Even certain game modes use this type of build-up, like the Payload, which requires you to push it to advance, but if you stop, a cooldown is initiated before it rolls back. I suppose in this case they added it to make it a little bit easier for the blue team, so red can't just nullify their entire progress in seconds by pushing the card back. King of the Hill points use this as well. When you capture the point, a counter ticks down, and when it hits 0, you win. The third type of build-up is a mix of the two before. It fills automatically, but you can also speed things up. An example for this are buildings, which erect themselves on their own, but you can decrease the build time by hitting them with your wrench. Upgraded dispensers also produce metal and ammo much quicker. But the best example I think is the Medigun. Wow, what a surprise, German Peter the Medic main thinks the Medigun is amazing. Jokes aside, the entire weapon revolves around regaining HP and building Uber. Your Uber builds automatically by healing, but the more you heal, the faster you build, similar to ultimates in Overwatch. If you spread your healing and heal wounded players, you build it even faster. Or you can risk your life and build more using the Uber Saw. And similar to regeneration, if your patient wasn't hurt in a very long time, you can regain his HP much quicker thanks to crit healing. Since the Tough Break update, it even influences your own regeneration, as medics that heal wounded teammates regenerate HP much faster. And because of this, you can coordinate with your teammates and tell them to hurt themselves so you yourself can heal faster. Now, what does this mean for the future of TF2? Well, as we can see, Valve is very aware of the benefits of build-ups. They knew that since the beginning, but the recent changes to the medigun and the soda popper show that Valve wants to reward skills some more. They also realized that cooldowns aren't as rewarding, so maybe while they can't remove them entirely, they're at least giving you the option to speed them up if you're good. These, in my opinion, are definitely steps in the right direction, especially since Valve wants to make the game more competitive. And it's also much more interesting to watch someone build up an ability because they're doing well, instead of them using it once and then prancing around while waiting for another chance. If Valve does keep this up, they'll be able to raise the skill ceiling of the game even further, which could also extend the lifespan of the game as there's more stuff to try out and be good at. I'm really hoping that weapons that get added in the future use build-ups, and also that the current ones, with cooldowns like the Mad Milk, etc., also get changed. Maybe it would be a good idea to make the critical use build-up instead of a cooldown. But seeing how much Valve cares for things like these, it makes me a bit more optimistic towards TF2's future. Valve doesn't always know what they're doing, but when they do a really freaking good job, as I've shown you. So I am very excited for 2018 when the Pyro update will finally be released. Let's just hope that some devs from Dota don't just decide to join TF2 and add cooldowns everywhere because, hey, it worked for Dota! But thank you very much for watching. As always, I make these videos to start a discussion, so it would be really nice if you could tell me your thoughts and opinions in the comments. And I'd also like to thank you very much for 1,995 subscribers. I know that I have way more subscribers now, but that number is very special to me because it's the year I was born in. But that is it for me, have a very wonderful day and goodbye!